Hello, hello, amigos, amigas. Welcome to Lima, Peru. Thanks so much for visiting Lima. Thank you for your interest in Peruvian history, in Peruvian culture, tradition, food. Today we are going to dive in one of the hot topics of the country related with culture, related also with fusion. Today we're going to talk about the Japanese immigration to Peru. Before that, let me say hi to you all, but one by one. Thanks a lot for staying here and waiting for the starting of this tour. Hi, Brian, Cari, hello, Jessica, hola, hola, Terry, Mary, Jeremy, Ellen, Glenda, hola, hola. Thanks a lot for coming. Hi, Cari. Hi, Noreen. Hello, Robert. Eva, hola, Eva, Anna. Thanks a lot for coming today. Oh, Noreen. Yes, me too, me too. I will tell you today why this particular story is so special to me, and also a lot of different things about the reasons, for example, why the Japanese community came to Peru from so far away. I have some images also to share with you today. And I decided to start this tour not from my home, as my usual Untold History series are, because I wanted to take you to a zone where most of the Japanese community lives nowadays in Lima. So today we're going to learn about the nowadays community and also how much the Japanese community was able to integrate into Peruvian society. Hola, Sharon, Anne, Janet, hello. Hola, Jessica. It's so good to have you from Berlin. It must be a little bit late there, right? By the way, we are starting this tour at around 12:45, 47 must be already in the afternoon. As you can see, the day is beautiful. My name is Vanessa Vasquez. By the way, if you're new to my channel, I am your official local guide in Lima, Peru. I've been guiding for over 15 years in my beautiful city. I love Peruvian history. I wanted to be an archaeologist. I was not able to become an archaeologist, let's say, like formally, no, as an archaeologist, but I love still history. Archaeology is one of the highlights usually of my tours, but also I love to talk about culture in general. So if you have a question, by the way, feel free to ask me as many questions as you wish. As a tour guide, I might have lots of answers for each one of your questions. Sometimes I don't have all the answers, but I get to learn a lot also from your comments, from the interaction. So please don't be shy at all. Oh, Noreen, thanks a lot for your support. Muchas gracias. If you wish to support also your guide, not just your guide in Lima, also any guide in the platform in Heygo, you can support by a tip. Also, you can become a sponsor. If you wish to support my tours in Lima, you can also become a sponsor. The sponsorship is a program that helps guides to continue creating also for you different tours, different experiences. So I will let you know more about this sponsorship program at the end of this event. Oh, gracias, Noreen. You're awesome. Glenda, it is 10:49 a.m. in Oregon, USA. Oh, yes, that's right. Of course, in the north, in North America, there will be some parts like close to California, so far I know, that can be also earlier. And as you can see here, it is already afternoon time. So I will show you now where I am in this moment. And if you're ready, we are going to start with today's event. So once again, thanks a lot for joining. Look at the place we are in this moment. This is a really lovely site here in Lima, Peru, in my city. And the reason why I wanted to start here, there are a couple of reasons why I want to start in this location. Number one, this is a really interesting complex of apartments from the 1960s. The place where we are is called Residencial San Felipe. Residencial San Felipe was built between the years 1962 and 1969, and the style of the architecture in this zone is what is called the Bauhaus style. Have you ever heard about the Bauhaus, my friends? The Bauhaus style was born in 1919 in Germany. Mm. And it was a style that emerged after First World War. Yes, Noreen? So it is really interesting to see. Yes, exactly. That's the way, by the way, how it's properly spelled the Bauhaus style. And Noreen is helping me with the name. So what I wanted to share with you first is the fact that how old this location is, mm, and also the styles that were developed in Lima in the 1960s, right? For example, this site, this residential complex, is the best example of Bauhaus here in Lima. Mm? So the reason why the community, the Japanese community, chose this place to live in, this zone in particular, we are located in this moment in a district that is considered a middle class zone in Lima nowadays. It is because there are many important buildings that are connected with the community located here, just around the corner. That's why this community chose this zone around the 1960s, especially when the first of those buildings was built. It was the year 1962 when the Asociación Peruano-Japonesa, or the Japanese Peruvian Association, was built. So the story of the Japanese community in Peru is really interesting. And I'm going to start now with telling you the origins of this story while we walk along these beautiful parks. And also we get to see some buildings connected with the Nikkei community. Have you ever heard about the word Nikkei before? So we're going to explain what this word means. But first, I will start sharing with you some images which I think will be really, really cool to share. So the presence of the Japanese people in Peru dates back to long, long time ago. Today we're going to be doing something really nice. It's going to be sort of like a mixed lecture and also nice, relaxing walk in Lima. So the first image I'm sharing, of course, is the image of a recreation of a Asian immigrant in Peru in the 16th century. So even that old in our history, we're talking about the year 1596, when we have the information of the first Japanese immigrant in Lima. But the name of this person, by the way, we know the history of this person. He was probably so different than the people of that time in Lima, even the indigenous people of Peru, which were considered also very strange to the Spanish, the immigrants from Spain. This man called Francisco Japón. Francisco Japón. Japón is Japan. So basically his last name was his country of origin. Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you, Marek. Marek, by the way, is my husband. He's connected also to the event, and he has helped me also with the translation or the spelling of the word Nikkei, which, by the way, my friends, Nikkei means sort of like Peruvian Japanese. It's the way how we call nowadays Peruvian Japanese people. Although there were different ways to call Peruvian Japanese, we used to call them according to the generation of their presence here in Peru. For example, first generation was the Issei, right? It's like, for example, counting in Japanese, Ich-ni-san, right? Issei was the first generation. Let me also share this interesting info with you. Maybe you would like to see it also. In the chat zone, I have shared a picture about how we used to call until the 1960s, more or less, the Japanese immigrants in Lima. It was according to their generation. Issei, first generation. Nisei, second generation. So those were the children of Japanese born here in Peru. And well, then we have Ichni Sansei, right, the third generation. But now we might have about more or less 6 generations or so of people who were born here in Peru that are of ancestry from Japan. So that's why, to make it more simple for everyone to understand, for example, that someone was Peruvian Japanese, it was made a decision to call the immigrants Nikkei, right? Nikkei, with people with ancestry from Japan. Gracias, Glenda. Exactly, exactly. Also, we call Nikkei the food that has Japanese influence. So Peruvian Japanese food is Nikkei food, which is nowadays a trend. So originally, we were talking about the immigration from Japan that is quite early, you know already, right? So in the year 1596, this man, Francisco Japón, Francis Japan, came to Peru. And years after, we have another group of Japanese men who came to Lima, employed to work in the construction of a bridge. Let me show you the picture of the bridge. So this bridge is located in downtown Lima, my friends. It's very close to the historic center area, the main square. And that bridge was inaugurated in 1610. In 1610. So we know that there used to be Japanese men employed to build that stone bridge that still exists nowadays. Things were used to do to last forever back in those old days, right? So we have also information that in the year 1614, there used to be 20 Japanese in Peru, right? Very little number. Of course, we cannot talk about an immigration back then in the colonial times because the number was reduced. There was not a massive immigration of Japanese yet. But things changed later quite fast. In the 19th century, in the 1800s, is when we have the presence of Japanese people in bigger numbers in Peru, in my country. But of course, there were some scandals also that happened that forced, in a way, also creating some relations between Japan and Peru, who were more sort of like controlled. What happened? Well, probably you know already that Peru is a country of lots of fusion, cultural fusion. And there are two communities, Asian communities, that are huge in Peru. The biggest one is the Chinese community, the Tusan people. Tusan are the descendants of the Chinese. And the Chinese immigration is older. This mass immigration is older than the Japanese because it started around the year 1849. So we're talking about the 19th century. So the number of Chinese people who immigrate to Peru was way bigger, right? But the problem with the Chinese people is that they came to replace the African slaves. They came with contracts, right? The Chinese came with contracts, but those contracts were not respected and they were treated as slaves. Many of the Chinese died because of the extenuation, the mistreatment. It was really, really awful. We are not proud of that at all, right? So what are the Chinese immigrants in Peru called? Glenda, the Chinese immigrants are called Tusan. Tusan. That is the general word or name we give to the Chinese immigrants. Tusan, yes, exactly, Glenda. Excellent. But the food, the Peruvian Chinese food, is not called Tusan food. It's not like the Nikkei. The Peruvian Chinese food is called chifa, and its origin is Cantonese food. But in the case of the Japanese immigration, most of the Japanese immigrants came from Okinawa. We had a large Okinawense immigration. And our immigration also, the Japanese immigration, the one we are talking today about, was much more controlled, and it was not, like as bad in terms of treatment. The treatment given to the Chinese was terrible, as you know. But the reason is very interesting. In the year 1872, there was a scandal, an international scandal that implied Peru, China, and Japan in a way. The reason is because a ship that transported Chinese to Peru, that were, of course, coming to work. Gracias, Jessica. Thanks for your deep support, amiga. Gracias. So that transported the Chinese to work to Peru and were treated terribly on board in the ship. The ship was called Maria Luz. It was the scandal of the Maria Luz ship. So for technical reasons, this ship had to, detour in direction to Japan to fix the ship, and the Chinese who were on board the ship tried to escape. Only one of those Chinese men was able to escape and went out to the authorities from Japan, Japanese authorities, and said how badly he was treated, and his let's say his friends also, Chinese friends, were treated on board the ship. So it was a terrible scandal. Japan got involved. Peru tried to clean its image also, and it was quite complicated. So that's why the next year, Japan also established some, let's say, connections, created a treaty to protect Japanese people who would go to Peru because they didn't trust very much on us. So they created the first treaty, Japan created the first treaty of friendship and economical cooperation with a Latin American country, and that country was Peru, right? So it was 1873. Mm-hmm. So it was really a bad situation, that one, that pushed this treaty, but eventually this treaty helped also the later immigration from Japan. So during the time of the president, Nicolas de Pierola, let me show you also a picture of that president. Oh, what is the name of that treaty? Thank you, Linda. It was, well, in Spanish, it's the Tratado de Amistad y Comercio Perú-Japón. So the treaty for friendship and commerce, Peru-Japan. That would be the translation of that treaty. So here we have the name of the president who imposed the immigration. Oh, you're welcome, Glenda. You're welcome. I hope you are having a fun time. And you're enjoying also the views, because I want to also to show you this really lovely, quiet place with this style called Bauhaus. This is where most of the Japanese community lives nowadays in the city of Lima. There is a large number of Japanese people living here. And in a moment, a little bit later, I'll show you why. Okay, so no worries. We're going to also get to see the business zone of this beautiful complex. These are apartments from the 1960s. Most of them were designed to accommodate middle-class families in a zone that was quite new and distant from the center of the city. Nowadays, we are in the middle of Lima. It is really fantastic seeing how fast Lima has expanded. My daughter became great friends with Peruvian Japanese young man. Oh, yes, Linda. I'm so happy to hear that. And also, I'll tell you the story of my connection with the Japanese community in Peru too in a little while. But I'm so happy you have also, someone that is Peruvian Japanese. We have in Peru a large number of Peruvian Japanese people as well as Peruvian Chinese. The Peruvian Japanese community is the second largest Asian community in Peru. And their traditions are really peculiar, very, very interesting. So also talking talking about, well, this person, Nicolás de Piero, the president of Peru, who led this country between the year 1895 and 1899. He imposed this immigration. Of course, the intention was correcting the mistakes made before with the Chinese immigration, which was not really very positive. We had a large number of Chinese who were not very happy, completely unhappy, to be honest, with the treatment given to them. Many of them died of diseases, malnutrition. They were not able to return home. It was an immigration of men only. There were only men coming to work from China, from Canton, most of the time. So it was really not good. So the way it was made, this time to correct the mistakes of the past, and also because there were a lot of people, a lot of Chinese who ran away from the haciendas. They were not really working as much as the government thought they would be working. So the way they try to correct it is to make an immigration that will be, of course, controlled. And let me show you this image. It's really cool. Of course, control, sponsored, or supported from both governments, Japanese government and Peruvian government. Also motivated or imposed by a Japanese business. The Morioka company will be the one that will bring Japanese with contracts to Peru, right? And in the image you see here, this is one of the posters that was used in Japan to call, people, workers, people interested to emigrate to Latin America. So here you can see, for example, in the poster, the image of South America, and there are two countries that are highlighted. One is Brazil, and the other one is Peru. Brazil has the largest Japanese community of South America, and Peru has the second largest Japanese community in South America. In the description, of course, of that poster says, well, come with your family, it says. Now, come with your family, come with your loved ones, and make a new life here, work here in Latin America, and make some money. Also, the description mentions that about Peru, that Peru is a land of beautiful climate. We do, of course, have a beautiful climate. Very stable, not big rains. Already, if you've been in my tours before in Lima, we don't have really rain in Lima. The soil is very fertile. You're going to be compensated very well. So a lot of good promises. Well, of course, there were promises. They were not really true. So it is really interesting to see that we were very well sold in Japan. And that's why lots of people wanted to come, right? So this company, Morioka, the Morioka family, company, enlisted in this first group of people who were interested in coming to Peru, 790 Japanese. That was the first number or immigration group of Japanese to Peru. Glenda, thanks for your support. Muchas gracias. Thank you, thank you. Let me show you also a picture of, first of all, I have a couple of pictures I want to share with you. The distance between Japan and Peru. So first of all, most of the immigration, as you know already, from Japan came from Okinawa. So Okinawa is it's one of the southern islands of Japan. So the traversy was quite long from Japan to Peru. It was about, let's say, 1 month distance on a ship. It was a very, very long distance. And also another very interesting thing is the fact that, well, the ship transported a lot of people, no? So it must have been very uncomfortable trip for them. We have also, there's a picture over here of the ship. And here you'll see it. This is the Sakura Maru. The Sakura Maru was the ship who transported these 790 travelers. These were families. Now we were correcting the mistakes of the past, because the intention was not just bringing only men, because the men tend to abandon the jobs when they fell in love with a Peruvian woman. Oh, that happened a lot with the Chinese. So that's why they decided to bring families in this case. Families that will be maybe interested in all together working and maybe eventually returning to Japan, not staying permanently here, right? So, oh, by the way, a little bit more of the looks of the zone where I am in this moment. This is a beautiful Bauhaus zone. Is the only Bauhaus complex we have in Lima. It's from the 1960s, and I want to show you also this beautiful zone, which is where the community lives in this moment. Most of the community lives. Also, we have a Chinese community living here, and also a small Korean community in this location. For example, in the distance, you can see a restaurant como Noya, Osaka, Japan. Can you see it? So we're going in that direction. We're going to see how are the local businesses of the Japanese community. Yes, Kari, we're going in that direction as well. So, well, now you know the Sakura Maru, no? The Sakura Maru in this long travesty was able to bring the first group of Japanese to Peru. And how was this distribution of these Japanese people? Do you think they stay in Lima or they went to other parts of the country? Well, of course, they were here not to do businesses in the big city. They were here to work in plantation fields. And most of these people were employed by sugarcane companies. Most of the times they were working about 10 to 12 hours a day. They were offered lodging, comforts also, some comforts, like, for example, spaces for families, like separated from other families, some privacy, let's say. Also, a doctor, if it was necessary, for them to be assisted. But most of the cases, these were just good promises. So it was hard for them. The Nikkei community mentions that their grandparents, for example, don't like to talk about, the times when their parents, because now we're talking about, great grandparents, most of the times the people who came first generation to Peru, how they were treated. They said that there was a lot of trauma because they were not offered what they were offered, or given, what they were offered originally, right? And it happens really a lot in stories of immigrants. It happens a lot in the the Chinese immigration in particular. So something important to mention also about this zone is that this nowadays is a middle class section of Lima. And it was designed also to be home for middle class families. We have lots of banks, restaurants, supermarkets in this section. It's a very, very busy zone. And we are going now in direction to the cultural center of the Japanese community. So let's go together to see that part where I keep going with the story. So they mostly work in plantations. Yes, Glenda. Yes, exactly. Sugarcane and cotton. In the case of the Chinese, for example, they work in even more extenuating works. For example, the harvest of guano, the fertilizer, the poop of the seabirds, who later was turned into a fertilizer, who was considered a prime product that was sold very well internationally. But in the case of the Japanese community, mainly in the sugarcane business, working, in the field. Guano, here is the bad food. Yeah, I know, Glenda. Peru, when we talk about guano, we talk exclusively about seabird poop, seabird poop. And the seabird poop, for example, the cormorants, seagulls, is very rich in nutrients. And it has been used since prehispanic times as a fertilizer. Its benefits were rediscovered. Yes, exactly, Kari. Very good fertilizer, very expensive. Its benefits were rediscovered at the beginnings of the 19th century. And they were exploited in the world. The price was very, very expensive, very high. So Peru made a lot of money from guano. Mm-hmm. But nobody wanted to pick it up. So that's why Chinese were introduced to work in this job. And their health was terribly compromised because of this type of work, right? So something very important, just a little parenthesis with the story because we haven't finished, of course, but I want to show you this important site. So we are in the zone where most of the Japanese community lives, gravitates around. We have a couple of buildings that are very important to mention. We have, for example, the Policlínico Peruano Japonés. So this is a clinic, a health center that is run by the Peruvian Japanese community. But it's open to anyone, of course. You can go to, for example, even a visitor, even a tourist that maybe needs attention. You can go to this clinic and pay, your, let's say, a consultation with the doctor. You can go in, no problem. But it's usually run by Japanese Peruvian doctors, for example. And they also have alternative, let's say, treatments that you can have there besides also the traditional Western medicine. So this is the Policlínico Peruano Japonés. So we're going to continue also with the story of the immigration. Now, you know that we had, well, a initial quite hard time for the immigrants from Japan. Here we have a picture of a group of ladies. Remember that this was a family immigration. These people were coming in family groups. Japanese were coming in family groups. Chinese came mainly men. These people, or these Japanese immigrants, were, let's say, quite young, up to 25 years old, more or less. So they were young families, usually, or workers. And they did, well, the duties they signed up previously for, right, by contract. Later, well, little by little, they started also to get better and better. They adapted into the local traditions, the local society. They started to create their own businesses. I am sharing here a picture from a little bit later in the history. These are pictures from the early 1940s, late 1930s, when you can see now that these families flourish in different fields, especially in barber shops, right? And also, well, in restaurants, cafeterias, for example, cafetines in Spanish, restaurants, pulperias, for example. So they started to create businesses that were highly appreciated and valued by the local people. But also they started to be jealousies, because they awful jealousies. And because they prospered, they were very united, as usually immigrants are. They are very united. They started to offer, let's say, jobs to people from the circle of the community. So that started to become, in a way, a problem, because there were jealousies among the locals. So that pushed also new regulations. Oh, by the way, my friends, look at this. This is a chifa. Ah, who remembers what is a chifa? Who can tell me in the comment section what is a chifa? Ah, I hope you were able to remember. You remember still what it means. Chifa. Anyone? Anyone? So this is a chifa restaurant. Chinese food. Muy bien, Dorota, gracias. Well, to be more precise, Peruvian Chinese food. Chifa is Peruvian Chinese. So it's a word we use in particular to talk about the fusion cuisine between the Chinese Cantonese influence and the Peruvian traditional food. So, well, some laws were very unfair to the community. There was a law, for example, that limited the number of non-Peruvians in businesses, and in particular in businesses of the Japanese. So 80% of the people that work in a business should be Peruvian, right? So that means that if you had a business, if you were a Japanese immigrant and you had a business and you want to help the people from your community, you couldn't employ more than 20% of people that had, your same origin, right? So these were, of course, very unfair rules. Yes, Carrie. So we have here, just a little parenthesis again, this is the Teatro Peruano Japonés, the Peruvian Japanese Theater. The Peruvian Japanese Theater is one of the constructions that was made around the time when it was celebrated the immigration of Japanese into Peru. So the ship Sakura Maru arrived on April 1899. And well, about 100 years after, there were many celebrations that happened. Also because during that time, we had a Japanese president. Who knows the name of the Japanese president we had? And I will post the picture here. Maybe someone remembers the name of this person. And yes, you can see a Japanese man with the with the colors of the flag of Peru. So, Fujimori. Muy bien. Alberto Kenya Fujimori. That was his full name, right? He is, because he's still alive, by the way. So, the Teatro Peruano Japonés was inaugurated in 1993. And the first play that was, let's say, made here for the celebration of the inauguration of this theater was Madame Butterfly. Madame Butterfly. So we're going now across. We're going across to keep walking also. And I will show you another building for the last part of this lecture that I'm sharing also with you. I was going to say the Japanese are an integral part of the culture. Yes, exactly, of course, Glenda. And still nowadays we have also the Fujimoris involved in politics. Although when we talk about Fujimori, it's like it's interesting. It's always controversial. There will be 50% of people who love Fujimori, 50% of people who hate Fujimori, and the daughter of Fujimori that is more active in politics, Keiko Fujimori, is still trying to be president for many years. He has been almost like this close to be president. She wasn't able to make it. Dorota, you had also President Kuczynski. Yes, Kuczynski, the Polish president. And by the way, my friends, if you're very into, immigrations and you would like to know about the fusion, the history of the different immigrations into Peru, I am preparing for, in a few weeks, a tour about the history of the Polish immigration to Peru, the untold history of the Polish immigration to Peru. So you have to also activate the notifications for this tour, and I will be letting you know soon when this will happen. The untold story of the Polish immigration. Okay, so well, I have some interesting things. Yes, Polish as well. Of course, Noreen. We have them all. Look at this gentleman over here. He's Peruvian Polish. Say hi, Mari. Of course. This is my husband, Mari. He's Peruvian Polish. So he is the best example of the beauty of and the multiculturality of this beautiful country. Right. So my daughter's Japanese Peruvian friend's family was in politics in Lima, in Peru, and we're quite wealthy. Yes, of course. Politicians in Peru will always be wealthy, and you know it's a good business. Some people say, but indeed, yes, Japanese community is in politics. There are many people involved in politics. I have also here another picture. I love, of course, to share with you some pictures that are really interesting. So this is a little bit of the numbers of Japanese nowadays. You might be wondering how many Japanese are in Peru nowadays. But of course, these are, it cannot be exact numbers because there were people that were not registered. Nowadays, also, there are people who in the last census, for example, they didn't say they failed Nikkei, they just failed mixed blood, for example, which is valid. But you can see that in the year 1899, there were 790 Japanese coming in the ship Sakura Maru to Peru. You saw also a little bit of where they move. They move along the coast in Peru to different zones, north and south of Lima, and they started to spread out. We have also a time when the number grew quite a lot. At the beginning of the 20th century, 1920s, we had about 18,000 Japanese in Peru. But when it reached its summit around the 1930s, 40s, we had a really sad time, not just in Peru, in the world. It was the Second World War. And something really sad happened here in Peru. And we're going to talk also a little bit about this sad chapter of the history of my country, because we've made mistakes. And many Peruvians really don't know about this part of the history and how we Peruvians behave about the Japanese immigrants. When, during the Second World War, happened the terrible, Pearl Harbor attack, right? So Peru, because its proximity to the United States, still we are very close to the United States, decided to break relations with Japan, Germany, Italy, and all the countries who were creating alliances with Germany. And also, we sent a large number of people to internment camps in the United States, in particular Crystal City. Also, I have here with me a book which has been also the source of the story I'm sharing with you. This is a new book called Los Desterrados. Desterrados are, the people who are taken out of their country, out of their land, right? So this story that is narrated from the perspective of many Peruvian Japanese who were children, grandchildren of people who were taken into those internment camps in Crystal City, is here in this really lovely book, which is brand new. It came out this year. And I highly recommend it. I'm sure it's going to be also translated into English if it's not already into English online. Okay, so you can take a picture if you wish to learn later about this book, in particular, Luis Roca Torres. Okay, so there are some interesting notes I also made about this book that I want to share with you also. For example, one of those books, notes says that there were a large number of people who were taken from Peru to the United States that were Issei and sansei, first generation and second generation, which is very sad because second generation Peruvians, Japanese Peruvians, they most of the time were not connected to the Japanese traditions, or they never went to Japan, but they were still taken out to those internment camps. So, for example, I have a note here that says that there were about, let me tell you, there were 141 Japanese taken to Crystal City in the year 1942, with 173 Germans and 11 Italians. Mm-hmm. So in total, also because there were more people also later sent to the United States in that terrible time, 1,771 Peruvian Japanese were sent to internment camps in different parts of the United States, and they were denied to return to Peru. They were sort of like closed completely the doors back to Peru. Many years after, about 10 years after, only 100 Japanese returned to Peru. Many decided to stay in the States, and many also decided to go to Japan. What city is Crystal City? Oh, Glenda. Let me also let you know in detail this. Crystal City was an internment camp which was located in, if I remember, Texas. And it was one of the sites that were created to receive Japanese Americans or Japanese Latin Americans also during the time of the Second World War, when the United States also broke any relations with Japan because of the attack of Pearl Harbor, right? So it was there was a very big fear on the Japanese also because it was believed that they were planning attacking again, not just the United States, also other countries in Latin America. West Crystal City in San Francisco. Glenda, I think we can also revise that in detail. See, but I cannot remember exactly where it was Crystal City in this moment. If someone here in the group can help me in detail, I will highly, highly appreciate that. No, thank you. So after that, yes, it was in the USA. Yes, Glenda, it was in the USA. So after that time, there was a period when the number decreased. No worries, Glenda. Thank you. I'm so sorry. I don't know exactly. I think it's in Texas. It was in Texas. There was a time when the community also emigrated from the States. Nowadays, the community is around 160,000 in Peru, right? And we are here in front of the Cultural Center, Peruvian Japanese Cultural Center, where we can see also the importance of the community in Peru nowadays. The Nikkei community is present in politics, is present in the culinary, is present in the art, is present in television, is present in any sphere of the country. So it's very important to mention that although Peru behaved also terribly during the 1940s with this fear and justifying, there was no justification for this fear. The community resisted here. They still work very hard, double hard also to thank you, Glenda, Texas. They work extra hard also to gain not just a reputation that was taken away from them because a world that was very distant from them, that they didn't fight for and they didn't involve in. They work extra hard to gain the respect and the love also of people from Peru who were afraid of them. So later on, they collaborate in different fields. For example, let me show you this really interesting monument. In the picture, you're going to see a site that is quite new is a monument that is called Puente de la Amistad Peruano-Japonés, the bridge of the friendship between Peru and Japan. So this is a monument which in this moment is closed because of, well, the pandemic made some changes in parks in Lima. So unfortunately, for now, we cannot get inside that park. But next time I'm going to be doing a special about the Japanese immigration. Of course, we will go to see some monuments. Also, there you see the monument dedicated. This is the newest monument dedicated to the friendship between Japan and Peru. It was inaugurated in 1998. So 1 year before the celebration of the 100 years of the immigration to Peru. So let me turn the camera now, so in that way I can say thanks to you all for your participation. I'm gonna also finish with a couple of interesting things, my thoughts about the community, and also I want to tell you why this story is so special to me. I always had a very, very special interest in the Japanese community. I knew really not so much about the community until relatively some time ago. But life is really interesting, no? My country is very, very mixed. And life gave me the opportunity of meeting a very special man who is Nikkei, Peruvian Japanese. And this man became the father of my oldest daughter. My daughter is also Nikkei. My oldest daughter is Nikkei. Let me show you also a picture of my beautiful daughters. I have 3 daughters, by the way. When I met my husband, Marek, I had already my beautiful daughter, Valeria. She is Valeria Huecado. She is Peruvian Japanese. With her, I learned not just to understand in a more profound way the Japanese culture, because it's also her culture. I learned to love the Japanese culture and understand the many similarities and also the interesting differences we have. Understand the fusion, the culture, how hard it was also for the Japanese community to integrate into our society, but also the desire to give the best of themselves in everything, in anything they did here in Peru, in any steps they took in Peru, in Lima, for example. No, so well, I wanted to share with you this story because for me it's very special. That's why I love so much the Japanese immigration in Peru, why I feel so connected with it, because it gave me also, in a way, because without that immigration, I wouldn't have my daughter, my oldest daughter, Valeria. So this tour is also dedicated to her as well, although she's not connected in this moment. But she's going to see this event because later I will be uploading it on my YouTube channel. By the way, if you wish to learn more about my events, my different activities, you can come to my social medias. We are Adventurous Travel, my husband and I, my husband Marek and me, Vanessa. We organize tours here in Peru, in Lima, in different parts of the country as well. We have a YouTube channel, a Facebook, and Instagram that you can access at any time. Please give us a follow if you wish. You can also support this tour with a tip if you wish to do it. If it's in your possibilities to do it, I will let you know how you can do it. If I think on this button, you'll see activated a button that will help you also, will guide you in how to donate to help these events to continue being done. You can also, let's say, adopt this channel. You can adopt this channel, becoming a sponsor of this channel. With a small fee per month, you can help me to continue creating events. And also, as a reward for you all, I will not be doing tours exclusive for the sponsor program, but I will be doing something really, really special. I'm going to be creating with my husband a series of little books or booklets about Lima, about history, tradition, culture, which I'm going to be giving away to my sponsors if you wish to help me. It's like buying a book. I'm going to be uploading like always new, let's say, documents. Also, I have already my first booklet about cooking in Peru, Peruvian, let's say, recipes, which I will be connecting with videos that are already posted in my YouTube channel. So if you wish to have access to this booklet and more, because I'm going to be doing more cooking classes also, and I will be sharing all of these recipes with you all, you can maybe consider becoming my sponsor. That would be super wonderful if you can. Of course, I will still be happy just to have you. If you cannot support these tools with a tip, we understand. Life is not easy for all of us, and we are also on limited budget. We highly appreciate your presence. It's really important for us. So don't feel obliged that you have to tip if you cannot do it. You can also support sharing the events with your friends, commenting at the end of the event. That would be lovely. Following the channel if you would like to, know the upcoming tours. So please just jump on my tours. I would love to see you in all the tours, please. So tomorrow I have another tour. I have 4 tours in total this week. So now 3 left. If you want to know more about the upcoming events, just click in my bio in Heygo. Thanks a lot, Berota. Muchas gracias. Sharon, gracias. Thanks for your support. It really means a lot to me. I hope you had a fun time with me learning the untold history of the Japanese community in Peru, walking around this really nice place. If you want to learn more about other places in Lima, just comment also where you would like me to take it. See? See you soon. Muchas gracias. Cari, thanks a lot for coming. Thank you, thank you. Thanks also for commenting, for expressing yourself, for helping me out with, tips here. That is really highly appreciated. Gracias, amigos. Cari, Gillian, Sheila. Hasta la próxima. See you. Take care, amigos. Muchas gracias. Best to you all, and have a lovely rest of the day. Ciao, ciao.